Hello everyone, welcome back to RCH Builders. This is the boss man again with out here working on a roof for a customer. This is a fairly new roof. Actually probably, I think it's only been up here maybe 2 or 3 years. So the roof should be fine. One thing I see a lot of people do incorrectly is they'll say you've got this valley right here, and people will walk right up the center of that valley. What you should do is you should have a foot on either side of the valley like this, because right in the valley is the weakest point. That is where you could have a potential for a leak. You could easily end up breaking through the flashing, or a lot of times they'll only use weather shield, ice and water shield. You should do the same thing along the ridge. Don't walk directly on it. Walk to the sides like this. That way you avoid the issues of possibly breaking through them. So the issue that there is with this roof is that the roofer cut corners. What he did, me and my crew, we framed this house and we wired this house. We did not do the roofing. It was actually, we did it for another builder. It was before we were doing full jobs all ourselves. Plus, most of the jobs that we do only by ourselves are for renovations as opposed to new construction anyways. This was a new construction house, and we actually mainly did it only because it was a family friend. He has known my father and the guy who my father works for many years. They've had a long relationship. I think my father's boss and this guy kind of grew up together. I think they might have gone to the same school. He also knows quite a few other customers who I do work for. So we had framed it for him to try and he couldn't get some framers to do it at the time. He knew that I would do it right and try to save as much material as possible. That was one of his big things. It was when the COVID had hit and all material was super expensive right then. So he had really asked if I could try and do it for him. So I went ahead and framed it. And at the time that I framed it, what I noticed when they put this roof on, when he had his roofing contractor put this roof on, I had noticed that this vent right here they never put it in. They had put ridge cap all the way across here with no ridge vent. And on these houses, you'll see what they did do. They have a ridge vent down there. You can see where it's bumped up. They have a ridge vent down there, and they have another ridge vent right there. That's all correct, the way that it's supposed to be done. However, the most important ridge vent on a house, of course, is the top of the ridge. Heat rises. So this is the most important one, and they never put it in. And then, so I had told the builder, I had mentioned it to him, and he had them, I guess, put in, and quotation marks, put in a ridge vent before he paid them. And what has happened is the current homeowners who he had sold the house to, they are trying to sell it, and the home inspector who came out here and looked at it to see, to inspect, see if there's anything wrong with it or whatever, he saw that this ridge vent from underneath was never cut out. So all they did is they just put this ridge vent on top of ridge cap with there's no gap. So it's doing nothing. It's only here for looks. They put it there just so they could get by with with getting their paycheck. They did not actually make it usable at all. It is a dud. It does nothing. And so now, because they didn't do what they were supposed to, and the first home inspector who would have looked at it at the time that the builder was first trying to sell it to a customer, to the customer who owns it now, they never caught it. But this new one, this new home inspector did. Now, so I'm not sure exactly where I was. I had to pause for a second. The homeowner came out and had a few questions. But what I'm going to try to do, because these shingles are not old at all, if possible, I'm going to try to carefully remove them so that we can put them back after we remedy the issue. So I think what I was starting to say is, home inspectors, some of them do, they serve their purpose, of course. But not all of them are going to catch everything. And it doesn't matter who you hire, whether it's just a regular home inspector or a builder. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to catch every little thing, regardless of how much we may want to. I'm still going to miss some stuff myself, even though I know a lot of things to really look out for. So we're just going to take those off because we're trying to save these nails. Because there's nothing wrong with the shingles themselves. I'll say this roof is not old at all. And as I mentioned, of course, I framed the house, so I know how old it is. What I will do, though, and I'll have to go down and get that when I get to that point, is I will create a new tar joint at each of these shingles. Because the tar that's on there, they got this line here. What that is, that's supposed to be a tar joint that helps join them together and seals it fully from the rain. And so what happens is when it first goes on, that tar is a little bit thick, and so then just the heat from the sun is going to obviously melt that and cause it to run, and that's what glues all your shingles together. So now we got to be careful how we apply pressure with the Wonder Bar, of course. It's, as you see, this stuff it's plastic, so you got to be careful where you put the pressure. And for the most part, most of these nails are going to be simply going into 7/16 OSB. So with that, even though they're long, if you can get underneath them, just to start underneath them, they'll pretty much just pull right out. The hardest part about them is the fact that they're ring shanked. So we're just going to go ahead and get them all off here and then move to the next step of this process. So now the next thing that we want to do is when we cut this out, what you want to make sure of is that if we pull this back this way, what you want to make sure of is you want to make sure there's at least one good lip from, because if water gets on here, it can run this way. So you want to leave this. You want to leave at least one start of a shingle up underneath here. So we can make a mark and say right here is where we can make our cut across, and we're going to want to do the same thing this way. So this way, they've actually got one right there. That's like a half a shingle, so we can come right there. That's where we can actually make our cuts. Now our next thing that we're going to want to do is measure down about 2 inches, and I forgot my tape measure down below. And you can't really use a pencil on here. It just won't show up. So it could be 2 to 3 inches. So what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to have that cut line right around here. Now that's going to be about 2 inches, and if you take a look at that, you know, that's a little bit less than that joint. But if you go a little bit past, that's fine, especially on a steeper roof like this, because it gives more room for the for it to get out. So what you can do is you can just score you a line. You've already got that mark there, you got the other one, and then you can come on here and you can use the level as a straight edge to just score that line across. That way you'll be able to see it when you go to cut it with the saw. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Then we can take our saw, and different saws have different ways. You can either measure it, which is the less safe way. The way you do that is you should take the battery out if you're going to do it. Is you would take it and you can use a tape measure to measure your depth here. However, one of the neat things about one of these saws is they have measurements right here. Now, we have 7/16 OSB, and then we have shingles on top of that. 7/16 is a little less than a ½ inch, and there's a line right here. You got that line in there. So that's a little less than a ½ inch, and then we also have the shingles. We have at least 2, if you count the ridge cap. That's almost like 3 or 4 layers of shingling. So probably going to want to set it about 1 inch depth. So what that'll do is that's going to have it stick down about 1 inch. If you're using it that way, if you're doing it that way, there's no reason to take the battery out. But it's showing you like if you're going to pull that guard back. So now this doesn't have to be perfectly straight, because that's going to cover, you can see where the nail holes did go through. So you know all that's going to get covered. So you definitely don't want to do that with a new saw blade, because you are going to ruin it. But I got lots of old saw blades I've been using for a while, and we can just use those. And 1 inch may not even be enough for this. We'll see. Nope, we're going to have to cut a little bit deeper. And so, again, this is part of why I started my own channel. I mean, my own company. Because so many people will just try to cut corners and get away with anything they can. This should have definitely been done before. We're still not through. So they had a nail going through right here. This way we can make sure we line it up just right with the way they had it, so it'll look good. could find this other hole. They had a nail going through right there and into there. Now that we have those 2 points, we can just center it up on the ridge. So if you look at this line here, this is the center line. That should be in the center. Now, it looks like when they originally put it on, they were a little off. But, so we can try and clap these off. So with this first one, just going to line that up. And I do not want to go through the same exact holes. But I want to line those holes up and then create a new hole. Just a little behind it. That way we know we're starting off in the right place, but we're getting a good connection. Alright, now I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab the my caulking gun. I actually already have in this bag of stuff, of goodies here, I have my caulking, roof tire caulking that I will be using. We got Loctite, roof and flashing, the polyurethane sealant. The polyurethane does not shrink and crack like a lot of other ones. I have another open tube from a previous job down below, which I will try to use if it's possible. Alright, so like I said, these shingles are perfectly fine, but where this tar has already been heated up and smoothed out, I'm just replacing that tar. It's really all you got to do, because these shingles are lifetime warranty, which is the same thing as what they used to call 25-year and then 30-year. It's the same shingle. They just changed how long they will say the warranty is. So now we will line up our next set of nails, where we make sure we get in the right places, and we'll let that tar catch right there. Almost there. So again, we don't want to go in the exact same hole, but really close to it. That's the last two. Then we just want to make sure that, as you saw when I pulled it off originally, there was a big glob right where the nails are. That's just because, of course, there's an actual nail exposed. The last ridge cap on any ridge is going to have that. It's just, it has to. So there we go. And now we're all finished. All I gotta do is clean up. Hope y'all enjoyed watching. Hopefully you at least learned a little bit about what it takes to do the ridge vent and some things to look out. From underneath, you can actually see up through, and you can tell that there was no plywood cut back. So if you got someone who's supposed to do this, you can go up in your attic and look up And if you see plywood all the way across, you obviously know they did not fix it like they were supposed to. So, something to look out for. Again, hope y'all enjoyed watching. Like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, any specific topics you'd like to learn about, that you'd like us to do a video on, please feel free to let me know.